إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الكلام كلام الله، وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. وبعد. Ikhwan, time and time again we mention the affair of the fact that the da'wah to Salafi al-Mubarakah is based upon the manhaj of the Anbiya, the manhaj and the methodology of the Anbiya wal Rusul. That methodology, Ikhwan, that the Islam, that the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with, is nothing but an extension of. And when we say, Ikhwan, that the manhaj of the Anbiya is the da'wah to Salafiyya, and that the da'wah to Salafiyya is the manhaj al-Anbiya, we mean by way of that, Ikhwan, that just as the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned concerning the Anbiya, that the Anbiya ikhwatun li'allat, that indeed the Anbiya are brothers li'allat, brothers of the same father or the same mother having different mothers. That would necessitate, Ikhwan, and indicate the fact that the origin in regards to their da'wah and their methodology was one and the same. That they, in regards to their methodology and their manhaj and their usul, they were upon similar principles and similar usul, Ikhwan. And no doubt, as the Messenger ﷺ explained, دينهم واحد وشرائع شتى, that indeed their religion is one, but their shara'i' and the ahkam and the rulings that they came with, aspects of their legislation and so on, may have differed. So concerning that, Ikhwan, we say therefore that our approach towards analyzing any affair, particularly those affairs that are related to the usul of the religion and the fundamentals of the religion, we must, Ikhwan, return back to that which the Messenger Muhammad, that messenger that was sent to our time and to our ummah, Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, return back to that which he was upon in regards to those affairs, and similarly that which his companions, the companions of the Messenger of Allah, the Sahabatul Kiram, ridwanullahi alayhim, that they were upon, Ikhwan, in regards to their methodology, in regards to their usul. Analyzing the state of the ummah, analyzing the affair of the Muslimun in our time, no doubt we have a number of individuals, Ikhwan, who have different approaches towards dealing with the weakness of the Muslims, towards dealing with the manner in which the Muslims have left the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From them, there are those who analyze the affair and believe that our problems and our weakness and our splitting returns back, Ikhwan, to us not being unified upon the rope of Allah Azza wa Jal. So they approach the affair of rectifying the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by way of tajmi'. And that is no doubt the affair of them gathering or attempting to gather the Muslims, regardless of that which the Muslims were upon, gather them under one banner, because they say that which is important is La ilaha illallah, that we believe that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah. And as for the other differences that we may have, then we can put those aside for the purpose of the greater good, which is the unity of the Muslims. Not realizing and not recognizing the fact that they resemble by doing so the Yahud. For Allah Azza wa Jal dispraised the Yahud when He mentioned their affair, and He mentioned تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى, that you would believe and perceive that they are united, while in actuality their hearts are disunited. Highlighting Ikhwan as Allah Azza wa Jal dispraises them because of that, highlighting that the affair is not rectified by us merely uniting under one banner, regardless of that which we're upon, by way of tawajjuh and by way of understanding. There is another group that believe, Ikhwan, that our problem is because of the presence of hukam, zalama, yani rulers who are over us, who are oppressive, and who are individuals who, because of the fact that they are in the hands of the kafirun and in the hands of kafir governments and establishments, that they have caused and led to the weakness in the Muslims. These oppressive rulers, some of them they declare takfir upon them and declare them non-Muslims. Some of them they refer to as a'immatul jawr, or rulers who are oppressive, and therefore they return the weakness of the Muslims back to these oppressive rulers, not recognizing that Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned this, as occurs in Surah Al-An'am. Allah Azza wa Jal highlights the fact that the rulers that we have over us are a product of that which our own hands have put forward. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْدَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, that thus do we place some oppressors in charge of other oppressors because of that which they themselves had earned. So Allah highlights the fact that the affair of the rulers and us having oppressive rulers is not the issue and is not the problem. There is yet another group that return the affair, Ikhwan, and our weakness back to another affair that they mentioned. The first of them mentioning the affair of the oppressive rulers. One of them mentioning that we're not unified. Yet another group, Ikhwan, return that affair back to the fact that we are individuals who have left alone jihad. So they say, therefore, that because of the fact that we have left alone jihad, and we have left alone that which the earlier generation from amongst the Muslimun were upon, it is our return to jihad that will bring about and will strengthen the ranks of the Muslimun. It is our return to fighting in the way of Allah against the kafara and the mushrikun that will return the nobility back to the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they are utilizing that regard the likes of the statement of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith that is sahih and authentic, where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِذَا تَبَايَعْتُمْ بِالْعِينَ وَأَخَذْتُمْ أَذْنَابَ الْبَقَرِ وَرَضِيتُمْ بِالزَّرْعِ وَتَرَكْتُمُ الْجِهَادِ سَلَّطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ ظُلًّا لَا يَنزِعُهُ عَنْكُمْ حَتَّى تَرْجِعُوا إِلَى دِينِكُمْ. That if you leave alone, or if إِذَا تَبَايَعْتُمْ بِالْعِينَ, if you trade with ina, which is a type of trade that involves usury, and you hold on to the tails of the cow, and he mentioned, you become pleased with agriculture, and you leave alone jihad. You leave alone al-jihad. Sallallahu alaykum dhullan. And indeed Allah Azza wa Jalla will place humility upon you. And He will not remove that from you until you return to your religion. Not recognizing, subhanAllah, that which they have utilized as a dalil is in actuality a dalil against them, a proof against them. But the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam highlighted the fact that the rectification of that humility and the removal of that humility finds itself present in returning back to the deen. And the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal begins with its usul, the affairs of the aqidah and manhaj, and similarly is completed with the furu' and the ahkam and those aspects of the religion that are the subsidiary aspects and not the fundamental aspects of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Ala kulli hal, their statement is a statement, ikhwan, utilizing the likes of that proof. And other than that, from the adillah that they utilize, is an affair, ikhwan, that they utilize, and a statement that they utilize to establish jama'at and jam'iyyat, yani groups, for the purpose of bringing or calling to the return to jihad, calling to the return to fighting the kuffar in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they claim. So we're going to analyze, ikhwan, that which is present from the statements of the scholars concerning the affair of jihad, and analyze something from the jihad that these individuals are upon, and see how far, ikhwan, or how close, as the case may be, although no doubt the case is not as we're going to see. Their call is from the true jihad of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Concerning the affair of jihad, first and foremost, ikhwan, and the definition of al-jihad fi sabilillah, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentions, ikhwan, the affair of jihad and the reality of jihad as it relates to the sharia of Allah azza wa jal. He mentions, وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّ الْجِهَادَ حَقِيقَتُهُ الاجتهاد في حصول ما يحبه الله من الإيمان والعمل الصالح ومن دفع ما يبغضه الله من الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. And he said that is because jihad, its reality is that a person makes ijtihad, that a person strives to obtain that which Allah Azza wa Jal loves and is pleased with from iman and from righteous action. He mentions وَدَفْعِ مَا يُبْغِضُهُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْكُفْرِ وَالْفُسُوقِ وَالْعِصْيَانِ, and to repel that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displeased with and dislikes from kufr, from disbelief, and from fusuq, from corruption and evil, actions of evil, and isyan, acts of disobedience. That is the reality of al-jihad. And then he goes on to categorize jihad, ikhwan, that statement, afwan being the statement of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. Statement being the statement of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah in Majmu' al-Fatawa. Likewise, we have the statement, ikhwan, and the categorization of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah of al-jihad fi sabilillah. He mentions concerning that in Zad al-Ma'ad, he mentions al-jihad arba' maratib: jihad al-nafs, wa jihad al-shaytan, wa jihad al-kuffar wal-munafiqeen, wa jihad arbab al-dhulm wal-bid'i wal-munkarat. He mentions that is because jihad is of 4 types. He said, or 4 levels. He said the jihad against the nafs, the jihad which is the striving against one's nafs, the jihad against shaitan, the jihad against the kuffar and the munafiqeen, and the jihad against those who perpetrate dhulm, oppression, and bid'ah and munkarat. So here we have Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah categorizing al-jihad into 4 categories. And Shaykh Salih bin Fawzan al-Fawzan, he mentions 5 categories to jihad, or the levels of jihad. He mentions the jihad al-nafs, the jihad against the shaitan, the jihad against the Muslimun, the usat and the evildoers from amongst the Muslimin, and he mentions the jihad against the munafiqeen and the jihad against the kuffar. Similar to the categorization of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. Concerning the rulings, ikhwan, concerning those categories of jihad, and this is something that we need to analyze. For indeed, constantly we hear that jihad is fardu ayn. Fardu ayn yani that it is wajib, compulsory, upon every single individual from amongst the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is their call. Fardu ayn upon everyone. That we must go to Kashmir and Iraq and Palestine and other than these places where there is fighting. We need to make a difference between fighting and al-jihad fi sabilillah. Places where there is fighting, and all of us, every single one of the Muslimun, we need to go and fight in the way of Allah, saving by way of that, or aiding in regards to repelling or aiding in the repelling of the kuffar in those places. So we hear that general ruling that jihad is fardu ayn, and that every single individual needs to go and fight, and that all of the Muslimun are sinful because of the fact that we do not fight in the way of Allah Azza wa Jal. When we analyze, ikhwan, the categorization of jihad by Ibn al-Qayyim, and then we analyze the statements of the scholars concerning jihad and its ruling, we see, ikhwan, that the difference between the statements of the ulama and the statements of these juhal is as the difference between the heavens and the earth. Shaykh al-Fawzan, ikhwan, highlights to us the times and the rulings concerning jihad. The times when jihad is fardu ayn and the times when jihad is fardu kifaya. Generally, ikhwan, al-jihad fi sabilillah is fardu kifayatin, generally other than in three main areas or three main times. Generally, the general ruling concerning jihad fi sabilillah is that jihad fi sabilillah is fardul kifaya. That is, that it is wajib upon some of the Muslims. And when it is prescribed, it is wajib upon some of the Muslims, not upon every single one of them, to go and fight, and that it is not wajib upon every single one of the Muslims. The Shaykh bin Uthaymeen, he mentioned, ikhwan, that never, historically, never has jihad been fardu ayn upon every single one of the Muslims. Never. And he brings a number of proofs concerning that. From those proofs, ikhwan, he mentions the likes of the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا كَانَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَفْرًا. The likes of the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, لَيْسَ عَلَى الْأَعْمَى حَرَجٌ وَلَا عَلَى الْأَعْرَجِ حَرَجٌ وَلَا عَلَى الْمَرِيدِ حَرَجٌ. That there is no harm upon the blind, neither upon the a'raj, yani the one who has a deficiency in his feet, yani he has whether it be that he is crippled, or that he is paralyzed in one leg, or that he has some ailment in one or both of his feet. Likewise, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, وَلَا عَلَى الْمَرِيدِ حَرَجٌ. And neither is there upon the sick person harm. So here Allah Azza wa Jal exempts from the battle a number of individuals. From them the blind, from them the weak and the sick, and from them, ikhwan, the a'raj, or the one that has an ailment in his leg. Similarly, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that it is not for all of the mu'minun to go out and fight kafir, yani to go out and fight absolutely, yani all of them. فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ. And if only a group of them, طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ, if only a group of them were to stay behind, لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ, to educate themselves concerning the religion, وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ, and in order to warn and give admonition to their people when they return from fighting. So Allah Azza wa Jal again mentions another group of individuals who are exempt from fighting, yani that group that stays behind for the purpose of educating themselves concerning the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal, and so that they may give admonition to their brothers when they return. Likewise, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions concerning those who stayed behind in certain battles. لا يستوي القائدون من المؤمنين غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم. فضل الله المجاهدين بأموالهم وأنفسهم على القائدين درجة وكلا وعد الله الحسنى. Allah mentions not equal are those who sat and stayed behind. The qa'ideen, not equal are those who stayed behind from amongst the mu'mineen. غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدين, and other than those who have a harm with them or some sickness. والمجاهدين في سبيل الله, and those who fighting the way of Allah. Those who stayed behind are not equal to those who fought. Naturally, those who fought were more superior to them. But Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned they were not equal. Allah has given virtue to those who have fought over those who stayed behind. And then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. But both of them, Allah has promised al-husna. Allah has promised good for both parties. So here we find Allah Azza wa Jal praising the party or promising good for the party that remained behind, even though they didn't go and participate. So when the jihad is called, it is not a must, ikhwan, and it is not a condition that every single individual fight, other than in a certain number of circumstances that we're going to mention the statement of Shaykh Salih Al-Fawzan concerning that. He mentioned, ikhwan, al-jihad fi sabilillah كما فصله العلماء على قسمين. He mentioned that fighting in the way of Allah, as the ulama they have explained, is of two types. القسم الأول فرض عين على كل مسلم يستطيع الجهاد. The first category is that which is فرض عين, that which is wajib upon every single one of the Muslims, or upon every Muslim that is able to fight, and that is in thalathatu halat, and that is in three times or in three conditions. The first, he mentions qital al-dafi'. He mentions the defensive jihad, and that is when the enemy surround the Muslimun. So whether it be a township from amongst the townships of the Muslims, or a village, or a land, or a city, and the enemies they pelt and fight against the Muslims in that particular land. After encompassing them, it becomes fardu aynin upon the able-bodied males to fight in the way of Allah Azza wa Jal. Then he mentions al-halatu thaniya, it is sanfarahu al-iman, that the iman seeks from a particular individual to go and fight. That your ruler, your leader, the Muslim that is in the land of the Muslimun and is underneath a Muslim ruler and under the jurisdiction of a Muslim ruler, and his ruler commands him to go and fight. His ruler commands him to participate in a jihad. In this circumstance, jihad is fardu ayn upon that individual. The one who was called to fight, jihad is fardu ayn upon that individual. Thirdly, he mentions الحالة الثالثة إذا حضر القتال. The third time when jihad is fardu ayn, wajib upon that individual, is when he is present in the fighting. The two armies and the two bodies of individuals, the army of the Muslimun and the army of the enemies, are face to face. The battle is about to commence. At that time, ikhwan, jihad is fardu ayn upon the individual who is present. The individual who is present at that battle, and at that time, it is wajib upon him to remain, and it is not permissible, haram upon him to flee and to turn away from the battlefield. In these circumstances, ikhwan, jihad becomes fardu ayn upon the Muslimun. The first of them will repeat. The first of them in the defensive circumstance, when the enemies of Allah surround the Muslimun, surround the lands of the Muslims, and the Muslims are able-bodied males, able to fight, here jihad becomes compulsory for the purpose of repelling the evil of those individuals who seek to attack, fight, and kill the inhabitants of that particular land, and pillage the land, take prisoners of war, and so on. In that circumstance, it becomes wajib upon able-bodied males to fight and repel those enemies, the first of them. The second of them, in the circumstance when the imam, the leader of the Muslimun, call a particular Muslim, command and commission a particular Muslim to participate in the battle. At that time, jihad becomes fardu aynin upon that individual who was commissioned by the Imam to go and fight. And Ikhwan, it is upon you to memorize these times, that you understand and have basira concerning the likes of these affairs. That you memorize them and put them to memory, Ikhwan. So the second time is when the Imam calls the Muslim to participate in a battle. The third occasion is when the Imam, or is when the two parties from amongst the fighting individuals, they come together, the fight is about to commence, we have the battle, the army, or the battalion of the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the battalion of the Muslimun. In that circumstance, it is not permissible for the Muslim to turn away from the battle, rather it is fardu aynin upon that individual to remain and to participate in the battle. Outside of those circumstances, jihad, ikhwan, is fardu kifaya. It is wajib upon some of the Muslimun to participate, and it is not wajib upon every single one of them. As long as a group from amongst them participate, then the obligation falls from amongst those who are other than them. Another affair, ikhwan, that is of major importance to clarify. That is the statement of the scholars, ikhwan, concerning the types of jihad. That the jihad, the scholars, they mention that jihad, ikhwan, is of two types. That which is referred to as jihad al-talabi wal-fath, and that which is referred to as jihad al-dafa'. Jihad al-talabi wal-fath is the offensive jihad. It is that fighting that the Muslimun initiate for reasons that could differ. From those reasons, the primary reason is the removal of oppression. The head of those types of oppression, ikhwan, the oppression of shirk. That jihad, therefore, is the jihad, ikhwan, that is initiated by the Muslimun. That jihad has a number of conditions. From those conditions, al-ikhlas. That jihad is fought with the intent of fighting fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah. Not for the purpose, ikhwan, of showing one's bravery, or showing our courage, or showing Adam, or the non-presence of cowardice, or showing or repelling, ikhwan, or merely fighting for the sake of fighting. Rather, that jihad has to be established for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and established, ikhwan, to raise the kalimatillah. The Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Man qatala liyakunu aw litakunu kalimatillah hiya al-ulya fahuwa fi sabilillah. That whosoever fights so that the kalima of Allah, so that the word of Allah is uppermost, then he is fighting fi sabilillah. That is the first condition, al-ikhlas. Secondly, ikhwan, the scholars, they mention from the conditions is that there is a dawla, that we have a land, that the Muslims have a land and a leader. That land, ikhwan, is the land of the Muslimun. And that land initiates that battle. That land initiates that fighting. Thirdly, ikhwan, that we have an imam. That we have a leader, an imam for that battle. And that imam, ikhwan, is the one who coordinates the battle and dictates what should take place during the battle. And it is he that dictates what is going to happen and what should occur concerning the booty and the spoils of war. Similarly, ikhwan, from the conditions of that jihad is tamayyuz as-sufuf, is that the ranks of the fighters are known. That the army of the Muslimun is an established, known army. And the army of those who they are fighting against is an established, known army. and we are close to commencing the fight. There is an army of individuals, soldiers, who have established and gathered for the purpose of fighting, and we likewise have an army for that purpose. Tamayyuz as-sufuf. If there is not the presence of that, then the jihad, ikhwan, is not permissible. So we see, ikhwan, when we analyze, we're going to go on to discuss the comparison between the jihad that is established in the sharia and the comparison or the jihad, ikhwan, of these fools. The jihad, ikhwan, of the juhad. The jihad of the ignoramuses, who have brought nothing but fitna and fasad. No doubt, ikhwan, the likes of that which Allah Azza wa Jalla has mentioned. وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. Be aware of the fitna that does not afflict and does not affect the one who does that, or does that fasad, or does that evil alone. The fitna of these individuals, wallahi, it affects, ikhwan, the Muslimun in every land, the Muslimun in every place. An individual from amongst them carries out these criminalities in one country, and the Muslims are affected throughout the dunya. Fitna, fasad, an individual, ikhwan, who wallahi al-azim are deficient in regards to their uqul. If only they were to take a minute to think about the ramifications of their actions, they would see, ikhwan, that their actions oppose the aql, much less the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So we analyze first and foremost, ikhwan, the first category of jihad, the jihad al-talab. When the Muslims themselves initiate the jihad, we see that that jihad has a certain number of conditions and a certain number of shurut. Just, ikhwan, just as salah has shurut, just as salah has conditions, just as hajj has conditions, just as many acts of ibadat, zakah, and other than that has conditions, and those acts of ibadah are not established and are not prescribed with the non-presence of those conditions. Similarly, ikhwan, the affair of jihad, ya'ni the jihad al-talab, is not established with the non-presence of its conditions. Ikhwan, the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, al-Islam, is not a deen of fawda, mayhem, individuals doing whatever they please in the name of the deen. Rather, the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal is a deen, ikhwan, that is beautiful, jameel, a deen of nizam, a deen of structure, and a deen, ikhwan, that prohibits fasad and fights against fasad and corruption of any type. The second type of jihad, ikhwan, that the scholars mention is that which is known as jihad al-dafi'. And we mentioned that second type of jihad, and that is the jihad, ikhwan, that is established to repel the enemies. And that takes place when we have the enemies of Allah surrounding the Muslims. Those enemies armed, fighting against the Muslimun. At that time, ikhwan, it is wajib, as we mentioned from the statement of Shaykh Salih bin Fawzan al-Fawzan, that it is wajib, fardu ayn, upon the able-bodied males to defend their land, to defend the women, to defend the children, to defend their tribes, to defend the elders and the scholars, and to repel those who attempt to kill their folk, their people and their townsfolk, and likewise to repel, ikhwan, those who attempt to pillage and take loot the lands of the Muslims. Two types of jihad, therefore: jihad al-talab, having conditions, and jihad al-dafa', the jihad of repelling. Analyze, therefore, ikhwan, with that being established, that jihad is of those two types. Likewise, ikhwan, not forgetting, after establishing the conditions and mentioning those conditions, not forgetting, ikhwan, that all of those affairs are governed by Ahlul Ilm wal Fadl, that those conditions and those affairs are governed by the ulama, not any alim, not any alim, not any individual ikhwan who is young in his knowledge, young in his age. Rather, that affair is governed by the kibar ulama, those scholars who have years ikhwan with them, age, hikmah, wisdom, experience, those who have been commanded to return back to before, over and above the younger scholars. So we say therefore that in a nutshell is the affair of al-jihad generally, as it relates to its types and conditions and its rulings generally. No doubt, wallahi ikhwan, there are many other affairs, that which is related to the adab of jihad and so on. There are many other affairs. But what we want to highlight, ikhwan, and mention is after establishing those types of jihad, and after establishing the times when jihad is fardul kifaya, and the times when jihad is fardu ayn, analyze, ikhwan, that which these individuals have done here in England, referring to it as jihad fi sabilillah. And these individuals, ikhwan, who have supported that and aided that. And we have heard, ikhwan, the announcements, and we have heard that which has taken place from the interviews, radio interviews and so on, from individuals declaring that yes, it is our duty to fight against the enemies and to fight against the kuffar. And yes, they say, it is our duty to help and aid any Muslim that wishes to do so. Yes, they say, it is our duty and it is haram for us to mention or to speak concerning or to speak against any Muslim that wishes to do so. It is our duty to protect and to aid him. It is our religious duty, they say. Analyze, ikhwan, subhanallah. Our question to them is, if you claim that this action of yours is al-jihad, then which of the types of jihad, ikhwan, does it fall into? Does it fall into the jihad al-talab? That jihad, ikhwan, that has those conditions that we've mentioned, that the Muslimun initiate? If they're going to say that it is and falls into jihad al-talab, then our question to them is, where is the iman? What is the dawla? What is the land that has initiated this? Where, ikhwan, is the imam and the leader and the ruler that they are fighting behind and that has commissioned them to do so? If, ikhwan, it falls therefore into and behind and underneath jihad al-dafi', the jihad of repelling the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal, then where is the fighting? Where is the army that has come to surround the Muslims, to kill them? Where are the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal that seek to kill and pillage and kill and loot the Muslimun? Where is that? Is it in London, present? Subhanallah. We have Muslimun, bal, the leaders from amongst these individuals have taken residence here. So it couldn't possibly be here. We wouldn't move to the land, ikhwan, that is fighting against us. Why would one do so? Similarly, ikhwan, when we analyze the affair and their statement, we see, ikhwan, that if they try to say that it is jihad al-talab, then a number of the conditions of jihad al-talab are not present. And if they try and say that it is jihad al-dafi', similarly we say that the condition for jihad al-dafi' is that the Muslims are surrounded by an enemy, which was not the case. Subhanallah, we have the kafir government here, allowing the Muslims to grow their beards, allowing the Muslims to have their niqab. Rather, it is now legislation. It is legislation that there are certain things that they cannot, whether it be in the workplaces, they can't discriminate against the Muslim because of the fact that he's a Muslim. You can't discriminate against a Muslim woman because she wears the hijab. In fact, ikhwan, they aid and give money to build masjids. How many masajid in England built by the government? Yet still we're going to say that these are the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are fighting against us, that we should kill and fight. That having their legislation and in their qanoon, that it is not permissible to discriminate against a Muslim. Not permissible for one to discriminate against an individual because of the fact that he worships Allah Azza wa Jal. And they must allow for worship and so on. A people who build masajid aid and funded the building of masajid. We're not saying that they're anything like our salihun or the people of khair or the people of good from amongst the Muslims who aid in building of masajid. La wallah. We're not saying that. No doubt the condition of the acceptability of their sadaqat and their charity is not present in Islam. No doubt we still say that they are kuffar. We're not going to beat about the bush concerning that. No doubt, that is the case. But subhanallah, ikhwan, analyze the nature of the kuffar that we're dealing with. Secondly, ikhwan, analyze that which they claim and refer to as al-Jihad. So we have individuals now planting bombs on buses and in tube stations, removing their beards before they do so, so that we can be discreet, putting the bomb on the bus, and then whether it be that we kill ourselves or that we leave the bomb on the bus and then we leave. When that occurs, there are a number of mafasid and a number of evils that are built upon that. From those mafasid, ikhwan, there are a quick announcement. Cars that are parked in the rec center, ikhwan, must be removed before 10 p.m. Must be removed before 10 p.m. Cars parked in the rec center car park, that is not in the actual rec center, in the car park, must be removed before 10 p.m. So we analyze the mafasid and the evils that are built upon their actions. So they bomb a bus. First and foremost, ikhwan, from the conditions of jihad and from the conditions of any of those actions that take place during the jihad, we mentioned the command of the imam of the Muslims to do so. And the imam of the Muslims and the imam of the jihad commands them to do so. That imam being, whether it be the ruler of a land, or whether it be an individual commissioned by the ruler of the land to be the imam of that jihad. So we're going to ask them, who is the ruler and which Muslim land are they under? And which Muslim land do they fall under the jurisdiction? The ruler of which has commanded them to do so. Or the imam that the ruler has placed in that position has commanded them to do so. Similarly, ikhwan, we mentioned from the conditions of that jihad is that we have tamayuz as-sufuf. There is tamyiz. There is a clear distinction between our ranks and their ranks. That we have Muslimun, a Muslim army facing a kafir army. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions concerning that. وَلَوْلَا رِجَالٌ, as occurs in Surah Al-Fath, in the 25th ayah. وَلَوْلَا رِجَالٌ مُؤْمِنُونَ وَنِسَاءٌ مُؤْمِنَاتٌ لَمْ تَعْلَمُوهُمْ أَنْ تَطَئُوهُمْ. That Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that if it were not for the presence of rijalun mu'minun, of men, Muslim men, believing men, and this is in reference, ikhwan, to Mecca and attacking Mecca, at a time when Allah Azza wa Jal wished and desired that Mecca, or that it was a prime time for Mecca to be attacked, and it was a prime time for Mecca to be attacked. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, فَلَوْلَا رِجَالٌ مُؤْمِنُونَ وَنِسَاءٌ مُؤْمِنَاتٌ لَمْ تَعْلَمُوهُمْ. And if it were not for the presence of mu'minun, believing men, and believing women that you did not know of were present amongst them, in and amongst the kuffar. فَتُصِيبَكُمْ مِنْهُمْ مَعَرَّةٌ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ, that they may come to them from you harm without your knowledge. That they may come to those individuals harm without your knowledge. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions, لَوْ تَزَيَّنُوا لَعَذَّبَنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. Allah mentions, but if their ranks were to be distinct, if they were to be distinct, clearly those are the enemies who are fighting against the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and these are the ranks of the Muslims, during the time of jihad, if those ranks were distinct, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish those who disbelieve عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. That is as it related to fighting against Ahlul Makkah, the time or prior to the conquest of Makkah. From that verse, the scholars mention that from the conditions of that jihad is that we have a distinct rank of enemies of Allah and a distinct rank of the Muslims. Analyze Ikhwan. In regards to the bomb that took place, subhanAllah, there were probably more Muslims that died than kuffar. Individuals, Muslimun and Muslimat, believing men and believing women, dying Ikhwan. And that which they claim is al-Jihad fi sabilillah. Similarly, Ikhwan, we have the prohibition against killing oneself. And Sheikh bin Baz, we're going to mention the fatwa concerning that. Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was asked, Ikhwan, concerning that which people refer to as suicide bombings. And that which takes place in Palestine. And the affair, Ikhwan, is as haram in Palestine as it is here in England. No one fool you. The situation in Palestine legitimizes the likes of those affairs, suicide bombings and killing and so on. The situation in Palestine doesn't legitimize it. Similarly, Iraq, the affair is one and the same. Sheikh bin Baz anyway was asked concerning that, and he mentioned, الذي أرى وقد نبهنا له غير مرة أن هذا لا يصح لأنه قتل للنفس والله تعالى يقول ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم إن الله كان بكم رحيما. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من قتل نفسه بشيء عذب به يوم القيامة. That he mentions that which I see and that which I've drawn the people's attention to in more than one occasion is that this is not correct and it is not sound, because it is killing oneself. And Allah Azza wa Jalla has said, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, and do not kill yourselves, for indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been most merciful to you. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that whosoever kills himself with something, that he will be punished with that on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And he mentions, يَسْعَى فِي حِمَايَةِ النَّفْسِ وَإِذَا شُرِعَ الْجِهَادِ. This is the statement of the Shaykh. وَإِذَا شُرِعَ الْجِهَادِ جَاهَدَ مَعَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَإِنْ قُتِلَ فَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ أَمَّا أَنَّهُ يَقْتُلْ نَفْسَهُ يَدَعَ اللَّهُ فِي نَفْسِهِ حَتَّى يُقْتَلْ مَعْهُمْ غَلَطٌ لَا يَجُوزُ. That he mentions that a person should strive for the protection of himself. But he mentions if jihad is prescribed, listen to the statement of the Shaykh, opposing Ikhwan, and the fighting in Palestine was present when the Shaykh was alive. That which is taking place in Kashmir was present when the Shaykh was alive. Listen to the statement of the Shaykh. If jihad, or when jihad is prescribed, so, وَإِذَا شُرِعَ الْجِهَادِ, and when jihad is prescribed, then a person fights with the Muslims. وَإِنْ قُتِلْ فَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ, and if he is killed, then alhamdulillah. As far as him killing himself, then indeed the Shaykh mentioned that that is غَلَةٌ لَا يَجُوزُ. That is an error and it is not permissible. So then, Ikhwan, the affair returns and we'll finalize. We're mentioning that which is related to their statement concerning the kuffar. And the statements that we've heard from Bin Laden and the likes of Abu Qatada, the likes of Abu Hamza, and the likes of Umar al-Bakri, and the likes, Ikhwan, other than them from amongst the individuals who fight, who aid their court, whether it be al-Mas'ari or al-Faqih, Sa'd, all of those individuals, Ikhwan, all of them, we find them making statements concerning the kuffar that would indicate that the lives of the kuffar are worthless and are irrelevant and have no worth. They're only kuffar. And that it is wajib upon every Muslim. We heard in the interview that Bin Laden gave with one of the bodies, one of the press organizer, or one of the bodies amongst the press, that he mentioned when he was interviewed, what is your statement? He said, what is your statement concerning, what is your advice to the Muslims in general? You have somewhere in the region of how many million individuals who are watching now. What is your advice concerning the Muslims? I believe that the Muslims should kill as many kuffar, as many Americans, and British individuals that they possibly can, kill as many of them and take as many kafir lives as you can. All of that, Ikhwan, no doubt, from al-Jahl. All of that, Ikhwan, from ignorance, Ikhwan, in the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal. Analyze, Ikhwan, as we mentioned, is Da'wat al-Salafiyya, has its basis and is based in the manhaj of the Anbiya. Analyze, Ikhwan, the manhaj of the Anbiya. Allah Azza wa Jal informs us concerning the stories of the Anbiya. We analyze their statement that they will say to their people, اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. Worship Allah. ما لكم من إله غيره. That you have no God other than Him. And that they would make statements such as إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم عظيم. That indeed I fear for you. I fear for you the punishment of a great day. Highlighting, Ikhwan, that statement of theirs necessitated that they had something from a desire to see that they be saved. Something to see that their state be better. Something from a yearning to see that they be upon right guidance. Something from a desire to see that their state be better and that they raise that which they are upon from morals and ethics and other than that, from the affairs of khayrat and from the affairs of good. Even the Jihad al-Talab, as our Sheikh Muhammad bin Sheikh Afwan al-Fawzan, he mentions, it is for the good, inevitably and ultimately, it is for the good of the kuffar. It is for their good. So constantly, Ikhwan, we see that the Sharia seeks to guide those individuals who are not Muslim, seeks to remove them from the state that they are in to a better state, place them in a better state, help them in regards to that which they are upon, and lead them towards that which is better for them. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions concerning the messenger, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. Allah mentions that perhaps you will kill yourself with grief if these individuals do not follow the messenger, do not take right guidance upon themselves. لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا, they do not believe in this hadith, in this book referring to the Quran. Allah mentions perchance you will kill yourself with grief. Highlighting Ikhwan that the Messenger desired that they be guided, desired good for them, desired that they remove themselves from the state that they were in and enter into a state that is better. Similarly, Ikhwan, we have the statement of Ibrahim to his father. Bearing in mind, Ikhwan, that Ibrahim, alayhi salatu salam, his father used to make idols. Not only was he a kafir, but by way of him, the deed of the kuffar was able to continue. He made idols. Yet still Ibrahim addressed his father with those noble terms, Ya abati, qad ja'ani min al-ilm, ma lam ya'tik, fattabi'ni ahdika siratan sawiyya. Oh my father, there has come to me from knowledge. He didn't say, oh my father, you're a kafir, infidel, mushrik, jahil. He said, oh my father, there has come to me from knowledge that which hasn't come to you. And in not negating that he possesses something from knowledge, rather addressing him with noble terms. Oh my father, there has come to me from knowledge that which hasn't come to you, so follow me, and I will guide you to a straight way. Likewise, Ikhwan, we see constantly that the Anbiya, they strive night and day for the betterment of the kuffar. Nuh alayhi salatu salam, we know the da'wah of Nuh, calling upon his people for 950 long years. For what? So that they, Ikhwan, would receive the maghfirah of Allah, so that they will receive the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla. As Allah informs us concerning this statement, إِنِّي دَعُوتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا فَلَمْ يَزِدْهُمْ دُعَائِي إِلَّا فِرَارًا وَإِنِّي كُلَّمَا دَعَوْتُهُمْ لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ وَأَسَرُّوا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا. And he mentions that indeed, O Allah, indeed I called upon my people night and day. And indeed my call has not increased them except fleeing from me. And as the more I increased in calling them, لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ. Sure? كُلَّمَا دَعَوْتُهُمْ لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ. The more I call them so that you may forgive them. The more I called upon them so that you may forgive them, جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ وَأَسَرُّوا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا. They put their fingers in their ears and they pulled their throats over their heads and they continued وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا, and they were puffed up with pride. Similarly, Ikhwan, we have that which occurred with Musa alayhi salatu salam. When that Israelite, that believer, called upon Musa when he was being attacked, Ikhwan, by one of the kuffar, called out to Musa for his aid and for his help, to aid in repelling that individual. So Musa came to his help, struck that kafir and killed him. One blow. Struck him and killed him. What was the statement of Musa alayhi salatu salam? What's his statement, Ikhwan? Hey, it's a kafir anyway. What's his statement, Ikhwan? His life is irrelevant. What's his statement, Ikhwan? He is one who is a kafir billahi al-azim, يعني mal'oon, cursed, distant from the mercy of Allah. Allah dislikes him. What was the statement of Musa alayhi salatu salam? He said that indeed, هذا من عمل الشيطان. He said this indeed is from the works of shaitan. Not only did he make that statement, but he went on to seek the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave him. And then he went on to say, just as you have blessed me, just, O Allah, as you have blessed me, يعني with that maghfirah and with that forgiveness, فَلَنْ أَكُونَ ظَهِيرًا لِلْمُجْرِمِينَ. He said that I would never be an aider or be one that aids the mujrimeen, against the criminals. So here, ikhwan, we find that which the Anbiya were upon as it relates to the kuffar and those who surrounded them from the non-Muslims, we see, ikhwan, that the messenger and the messengers who came before them, all of them, ikhwan, had a desire for good, or the desire to see that those kuffar be guided, a desire for good for them. They desired good for them, desired betterment for them, and they did not wish, ikhwan, to merely remove them all from the face of the earth in the name of jihad fi sabilillah, or in the name of striving in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But ikhwan, concerning the statement of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, Ahlul Ilm, they mention, Ibn al-Qayyim categorizes jihad in those 4 categories. He mentioned from the categories of jihad that is fardu aynin upon every individual. It is the jihad against the nafs and the jihad against shaitan. The jihad against the nafs and the jihad against the shaitan. 2 types of jihad, ikhwan, that are fardu aynin upon every individual. To strive against himself and his desires, and to strive against shaitan. Yet still, ikhwan, we find these people failing miserably in regards to those 2 types of jihad that are truly fardu aynin upon them. Failing miserably, ikhwan. Whether it be the acts of their ibadah, whether it be their zayd and their appearance, whether it be their akhlaq and their mannerisms, whether it be that which is related to talab al-ilm and taking knowledge and seeking knowledge, failing miserably in making the jihad against the nafs and the jihad against shaitan. And then we'll finish, ikhwan, with the statement of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, who mentioned, ikhwan, in Kitab al-Ubudiyyah, a potent statement after describing jihad, similar to the description that he gave, the description that we mentioned in the beginning of the lecture, that jihad is in essence to make ijtihad, to establish iman and righteous action, and to repel kufr and fusuq and evil and isyan and disobedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. He mentions, rahimahullah, in Kitab al-Ubudiyyah, وَمَنْ تَرَكَ مَا يَقْدِرُ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْجِهَادِ كان ذلك دليلا على ضعف محبة الله ورسوله في قلبه. That he says, so whoso